Emma had always cherished the serenity of her quiet residence, positioned on the fringe of a verdant suburb. As a freelance graphic designer who worked remotely, she had curated a life that harmonized tranquility with creativity. Yet, on that particular summer morning, as her niece Lily entered through the front door with her small backpack and a tentative smile, a shift occurred in the atmosphere. It was a nearly imperceptible change, but it was undeniably present. Max and Luna, her pair of German shepherds, instantly went on alert. They refrained from their usual barking or excited jumping that greeted visitors. Instead, they approached Lily with caution, their bodies rigid, ears attentive, and eyes locked on her. Max investigated the air around her feet before moving to stand protectively in front of her, while Luna remained at her side, as though escorting a precious delivery into unfamiliar territory. Emma let out a nervous chuckle. "They're just happy to see you," she offered, kneeling to give Lily a comforting smile. Her words, however, did not align with the mood in the room. There was something amiss about the dogs' demeanor. They were not excited. They were vigilant. As Lily settled on the living room floor to unpack her coloring books and plush toys, Max and Luna took up positions beside her like silent guardians. They observed her every action, motionless and steadfast. Emma attempted to dispel the unease that was creeping over her. Perhaps they were simply being protective, she reasoned. Yet, she knew her dogs intimately, and this was not their typical protective stance. This was different, instinctive and urgent. Outside, the summer sun cast a brilliant light. Inside, an unseen presence had taken hold in the space between them. By the second day, Emma could perceive a change in the house, a subtle gravity that had been absent before. Lily, who was typically brimming with laughter and inquiries during their video chats, now navigated the rooms in silence, as if she were afraid of disturbing something. She kept her gaze lowered and spoke minimally, even when Emma presented her with her favorite strawberry waffles for breakfast. The child murmured only a faint, "Thank you," before retreating to her seat. Max and Luna stayed fastened to her side. Wherever Lily ventured, they were sure to follow. When she sat on the sofa, they flanked her. When she roamed into the hall, they padded along right behind her. If she paused to gaze out the window, a frequent occurrence, they stood motionless beside her, their heads cocked slightly and ears pricked forward. Emma took note of the glances, which were consistently directed toward the window and always carried a trace of worry in Lily's eyes. "Sweetheart, is everything all right?" Emma inquired gently one afternoon. She had hoped for a standard childish, "I'm fine," or a giggle about some absurdity. Instead, Lily gave a slight nod, her eyes barely meeting Emma's. Her smile was strained and brief. Returning to the floor with her dolls, she organized them into a flawless circle, whispering to them rather than speaking aloud. The room felt suspended, as though holding its breath. Max exhaled a low snort. Luna edged closer, resting her head on Lily's lap. Emma observed from the kitchen, her arms crossed, striving to conceal the mounting concern in her chest. Something was troubling Lily. She was certain of it now. And based on the dog's unwavering focus, they sensed it as well. That night, shortly after midnight, the tranquility of the house was broken. Emma was still up, drinking tea in the soft glow of the living room while Lily slept upstairs. A sudden, sharp bark from Max caused her to sit bolt upright. Luna immediately joined in, and both dogs charged toward the front door in perfect unison. Their ears were stiff, their hackles were raised, and their bodies were tense. Emma's heart leaped. The dogs were well-trained and disciplined. They did not bark at shadows. She put her cup down and rose, moving cautiously toward the door. The porch light activated automatically as she reached for the handle. Through the peephole, she saw nothing but the quiet street and the sound of leaves rustling in a gentle summer breeze. Despite this, Max and Luna stayed rooted before the door, emitting low growls, their eyes narrowed as if tracking something invisible to Emma. "Hey," she whispered, laying a hand on Max's back. His muscles were taut, his body wound like a coil. "There's nothing there." But the dogs were not convinced. They remained in place for almost 10 minutes, only retreating when she relocked the door and switched off the porch light. Even then, they did not relax. They lay by the entryway, heads on their paws, eyes fixed on the door. The following morning, as Emma drew back the curtains, she saw Mrs. Dalton, her elderly neighbor, standing just beyond the fence. Morning, Emma called. Everything all right? Mrs. Dalton's brow creased. I was about to ask you the same. I saw a group of unfamiliar boys lingering around your yard late last night. Emma froze. A realization clicked into place within her. Perhaps the dogs were not merely being overprotective. Perhaps they had been trying to warn her. Following the stressful night and the disquieting news from Mrs. Dalton, Emma could not shake the feeling that something was amiss, something more profound than what Lily was revealing. The house had grown too silent, too somber. Emma felt compelled to shatter the quiet, even if just for a moment. Hey, what do you think about getting some ice cream? She proposed to Lily the next afternoon with a bright smile. There's a small shop down the road that has sprinkles and chocolate chips. Lily glanced up from her coloring book, hesitating for a moment before slowly nodding. They walked in the gentle warmth of the summer afternoon, with Max and Luna trailing closely. Emma clasped Lily's hand as they proceeded down the sidewalk, the dogs flanking them like a professional escort. At the ice cream parlor, Lily selected vanilla with a strawberry topping. Emma observed as the first taste brought a spark of light back to her niece's face, a small but genuine flicker. Afterward, they headed across the street to the local park. Other children were running and laughing on the grass, their voices full of delight. Lily meandered toward the playground while Emma settled on a bench in the shade. The dogs rested at her feet, but their eyes continued to survey the area. Initially, everything appeared normal. Then Emma became aware of a small cluster of older children circling the playground on their bicycles. They were not being loud or discourteous, but the way they stared at Lily made Emma sit up taller. There was a coldness in their gaze, an unnerving focus. As they rode past, their looks lingered for too long. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach, a sharp sense of protectiveness surging within her. This was not idle curiosity. It felt deliberate and made her skin crawl. Max and Luna grew rigid. Their tails ceased wagging, and their eyes locked onto the group with a quiet, firm intensity. Emma followed their line of sight and, for the first time, began to suspect that the danger was not just in her head. The walk home from the park was silent. Excessively so. Lily held her ice cream cone, but she had stopped eating. Her other hand clutched Emma's tightly, and she periodically glanced back over her shoulder. The group of boys on bikes had eventually departed, yet their presence seemed to follow them like a shadow. Max and Luna remained close, their pace matching Emma's, their bodies angled slightly to shield Lily from the world. Emma looked down at her niece. "Did you have fun today?" Lily nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the pavement. "Yeah," she said, but Emma was not persuaded. Her voice was devoid of energy. The brief spark that had returned with the first bite of ice cream was already gone. When they arrived home, Emma helped Lily get comfortable on the couch with her favorite blanket. Max gently rested his head on Lily's lap, while Luna stretched out over her feet like a living barricade. Emma sat next to her, trying to be patient but desperate for answers. "Lily," she began softly, "is someone being unkind to you?" The question hung in the quiet room. At first, there was no response. Then Lily's shoulders lifted and fell in a small, defeated gesture. She remained silent, staring at the threads of the blanket and fidgeting with her fingers. Emma waited. Finally, in a whisper that was barely audible, Lily spoke. "They say mean things when no one's around." Emma's chest constricted. "Who does?" Lily shook her head, her eyes becoming glassy. "Some of the kids. I didn't want to tell. I thought it would stop." Emma placed a gentle hand on hers. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. And you're not alone anymore." As if on cue, Max and Luna pressed closer against her, like silent reassurances. Emma understood now that this was more than just childhood awkwardness. This was fear, and it had to be confronted. The days that came after felt precarious, like treading on fragile glass. Lily stayed near Emma, seldom wandering far from her presence. She spoke a bit more, but only in hushed tones and when she felt secure, which was usually when Max or Luna was at her side. The dogs had turned into her anchors, detecting every fluctuation in her mood with an almost supernatural accuracy. Emma knew they could not continue this way. The fear had embedded itself too deeply into Lily's spirit. What had started as a light-hearted summer visit had transformed into something burdensome and muted. Emma resolved to attempt a new strategy, something gentle yet illuminating. "I was thinking," she proposed one morning during breakfast, "perhaps we could invite a few of the neighborhood kids over. Just a small get-together in the backyard. Games, snacks, nothing elaborate. Lily appeared uncertain. Do I have to? Emma reached over the table, wiping a crumb from her niece's cheek. Only if you feel up to it, and I'll be right there the entire time. So will Max and Luna. After a long moment, Lily offered a tiny nod. That Saturday afternoon, children started to show up one by one, their voices filling the backyard with laughter and chatter. Emma recognized some of them, while others were new faces. She watched everything closely while feigning casual engagement in conversation. Max and Luna remained attached to Lily, following her wherever she went and lying at her feet when she sat down. Their nearness gave her just enough courage to exchange a few timid words with some of the guests. From afar, it resembled a typical children's party, but Emma could perceive the truth. Lily was still on guard, her smile never fully reaching her eyes. As the gathering went on, the afternoon sun descended, throwing long shadows across the backyard. Children darted between folding chairs and snack tables, their laughter erupting in short, cheerful bursts. On the surface, everything seemed jovial, but Emma's attention was fixed on Lily and the subtle change she observed in her niece's demeanor. Lily had been making an effort. She had conversed with two girls about a puzzle and even managed a brief smile during a game of catch. However, when a group of older kids, the same ones from the park, gathered near the fence, Emma saw her body tense up. They weren't speaking audibly, just loitering and observing. One of them gave another a nudge, which was followed by a snicker. It was discreet, but Emma noticed it. So did Max. His ears perked up immediately. Luna got to her feet, tail stiff, her body angled slightly forward. Lily seemed to shrink into herself, her posture slumping as her eyes dropped to the ground. Then, without a sound, she slipped away from the other children and made her way to the far end of the yard, disappearing behind the tall hedges. Emma's heart sank. She rose quickly, guided by the faint sound of footsteps. Max and Luna had already darted after her. Behind the hedges, Emma discovered Lily curled up at the base of a tree, her knees clutched to her chest, her cheeks flushed, and her eyes red. Max was pacing slowly in a protective circle around her, while Luna pressed her head against Lily's shoulder, a silent apology for the world's cruelty. Emma knelt beside her. They were staring again, Lily whispered. Emma didn't need to ask who. She already knew. Instead, she put an arm around her niece's trembling body. You don't have to face this alone, she said softly, and she meant every word. That evening, once the last guest had departed and the backyard had fallen silent, Emma sat with her sister on the porch. Lily had gone to bed early, drained by the emotional toll of the day. Max and Luna were curled up by the door, still vigilant, still watchful. Emma explained everything. What she had witnessed, what Lily had confessed behind the hedges, and how those subtle looks and quiet taunts had inflicted a deeper wound than most people would realize. I think it's time to talk to the other parents, she said calmly. Her sister nodded slowly. If we don't address this now, it will only continue. They decided to organize a small meeting, not to make accusations, but simply to have a conversation. It needed to be done with respect and thoughtfulness. The aim was not to assign blame, but to foster understanding. The next evening, for families assembled in Emma's living room, Emma offered tea, attempting to dissipate the tension that hung in the air like sunlit dust. Lily sat quietly on the staircase, out of view but close enough to hear. Max and Luna lay beside her, as if to guard the boundary between her private pain and the adult world she did not yet grasp. Emma stood up, her hands shaking slightly, but when she spoke, her voice was firm, laced more with sadness than with anger. She used to laugh all the time, Emma started, her eyes welling up. She would sing while brushing her hair, talk to her dolls as if they were her closest companions. But now, she doesn't even look up when she hears footsteps outside. She paused, finding it difficult to form the next words. I watched her retreat into herself day after day, and I kept hoping I was mistaken, that maybe she was just having a hard time adjusting. But yesterday, I found her hiding behind a hedge, crying because someone smirked at her from across the yard. Her voice broke. She's 8, and she's already learning how to make herself invisible so she won't get hurt. A profound silence fell over the room. One of the fathers leaned in. I don't think we understood how serious this had become, he conceded. We just saw it as harmless. Kids being kids. Another mother dabbed at her eyes. No one should have to bear that kind of fear. Gradually, The barrier between them began to dissolve. They spoke, they listened, and they worked together to formulate a plan. More supervision, more guidance, more empathy. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a beginning. As the families departed, Emma glanced up the stairs. Lily peeked down, her eyes wide and wary. Emma smiled through her tears. "We're changing this, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No more hiding, no more fear. You deserve to feel safe, and I'll do everything to make sure you are." Max and Luna relaxed at her feet, their silent devotion unwavering. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt something she hadn't allowed herself to hope for: relief. In the days following the meeting, the atmosphere in Emma's home began to feel lighter. There were still moments of reticence, shadows that clung to Lily's shoulders from time to time, but they were starting to recede. Each morning, she met Emma with a bit more enthusiasm. Each afternoon, she played outside a little longer. Slowly, almost tentatively, the child she had been started to reappear. Emma observed it in the smallest details. The way Lily would hum quietly to herself while drawing near the window. The way she released Emma's hand to pet Max and Luna without using them as a buffer. The way she began to initiate conversations, asking if her new friend Ava could visit after school. Emma's heart swelled the first time she heard Lily laugh. A genuine, unrestrained laugh at the sight of Max chasing his tail in circles until he tumbled over. It was the kind of sound that could fill both a house and a heart simultaneously. The neighborhood children started visiting more often, their words softer, their attitudes more considerate. The initial interactions were a bit stilted but sincere. The transformation wasn't just within Lily. It was in the environment around her, in the new awareness that had developed among the families, and in the shared commitment to do better. One evening, as the sun set behind the houses, Emma watched from the porch as Lily played tag with 3 other children in the yard. Max and Luna were lying nearby, still watchful but now relaxed, guardians at ease. Emma placed her hands over her heart, let out a slow breath, and smiled. They had weathered the storm, not without scars, but without breaking. And in the golden stillness of that evening, she knew that Lily was safe. She was healing, and for the first time in a long while, the world felt kind.